Okay, hello there, and this is a video in which myself, Steve Galloway, further to the videos you've seen of David and I at Grimsby talking in the car, and David's images, going through his image selection. I'm just going to take you through what I shot, ones I'm thinking about using, considerations, and just see where they might fit in the portfolio. Just talk a little bit about my workflow and thinking as a photographer, and just basically chat through it for a few minutes. So this selection of images here, I mean, there's quite a lot here. There's about 40 images, which I'm not going to go through all of them, and they're not necessarily all for the portfolio. This just happened to be a selection of images from the day that I've edited and that I quite like, that I'm happy with, that I might have a use for them, whether that's in the portfolio or on my own portfolio or my own Instagram, or just something to put away for another time perhaps, or something I might have shot purely just to have a bit of editing practice with, or to try something aesthetically different or mess around with, or just something that I saw and I snapped at the time. So just having a look at these. Obviously there's things I've got in the bag. I would consider this first one here my shape shot. Let's bring that up. Quite an easily defined shape shot. We've got the square of the grill in amongst the brickwork. Looking at this a bit further, it's how would I line it up? Would I try and get the brickwork nice and straight on, or would I square up the square, pardon the pun, or do I just leave it as shot? But this is what I'd call a safety shot. It's in the bag. I've got a shape in the square format that fits the brief. However, when I talk about having a safety shot or something in the bag, I know this would fulfill the brief, but it might not be the most exciting image that I'm going to get. In terms of a shape, I might see something else. For example, I know on the day that I shot an image of a roof line where the shapes were sort of old castle turret styles on the roofs and the corners of this building, and I was trying to play with the light flaring through a little bit, so the shape wasn't just a silhouette against the sky. It was had a bit of flare going on and a bit of sort of interest with the light, but then when I looked at it on the big screen, it didn't really pan out as nicely as I would have hoped. So I know from the day I've got a shape shot. I might consider using this one, depending on how a square crop might fit into it. With the three, perhaps this is a shot that, thinking about it at the time, I should have shot landscape, and so I could crop a square out of it, or maybe I could come across the top of the second one, but then with the rule of odds, 3 sets here, maybe that would fit in. But there's different things. Again, I can make a square crop out of this one and have the blue rectangle as my shape. I quite like it for negative space, coming across as a double page spread. The problem being that this is slightly out of focus. It's a bit soft. And looking at the other options I had, because I tend to take 2 or 3 frames of each subject that I photograph, the other one, the alignment isn't quite as good. So this one I can maybe move for something a bit different, or I may have to just throw away. And the shots here I've taken that, for example, this one, at the time I was thinking, colour, rule of thirds, because this is on the intersection of the grid, for example. But the sky is just a bit too overpowering. So although it's a shot I might use somewhere along the line, I don't think it's one that's going to be considered if I was fulfilling the portfolio. And it was to have a go at the portfolio while we were walking around, so that we had something to focus on for our photography, but shooting as I normally shoot, but trying to bear in mind that these sort of topics I was trying to cover as well. I quite like this one for for rule of thirds. Again, but you can fit a 3/4 page horizontal. You know, that threw that one out the bin quite quickly, because when I got back and looked at the list, I realised that, you know, it was a horizontal required. This is a vertical, so you know, you shoot different options. I like the story going on in this one. Again, it could be a rule of odds. Could maybe go for the 3 windows or the 3 building elements. The old man walking across. I don't know. I came back with a lot of images where, again, I was given, perhaps had too many options as to where these were going to fit into the portfolio structure. So just something, a little reflection there, testing out. I was also experimenting at the time. There's a video camera on top of my camera here, a little action cam. So I was testing this rig as well as doing, you know, the brief. I really fancied this one as well for shape, and it's probably the one that I will go for if I'm feeling brave. And I think in terms of feeling brave, I speak in the sense of taking that sort of creative leap of faith, in that the shape here is obviously triangular. It's cast by the shadow of the building over the wall. It's there. There's a shape there. It's a shape of, well, it's not a shape of light. It's a shape of light that's been blocked, or blocked light of what's not there. And I think this could be an interesting piece. I think this one, for a shape piece, for somebody looking at it, would be more visually appealing and have them thinking about it more than this one, which is just a bit safe, a bit straight on to the point, but perhaps a bit flatter compared to this. Although the shape is the dominant element within it, there's other things there that people can look at. There's even a circle, there's a square, there's a rectangle of brickwork almost there, and a triangle. So perhaps not just one dominant shape, but looking at different shapes. This is the one I spoke about on the car journey here, that I was looking at this as framing, because I like the idea that the doorway is acting as a frame and allowing us a peek inside the warehouse. And I liked a lot of the graphical elements in this as well. And again, it's just been about being a bit, you know, creatively confident to sort of take a shot like this and think, okay, and put this in for framing. Framing takes up a small amount, but it's the framing that adds the visual interest to the image. So, you know, would I consider this one as my shot compared to, you know, a safety shot that I could get, you know, looking out a window or looking through a fence post, etc. I think this adds something a little bit differently. This sort of shot I took, you know, experimenting for colour. I like the different colours that were going on. I like how the branding of the building matched the pallets and the skip. Very unintentional, because, you know, most pallets and skips are this colour, whereas the range is branded that colour. And then there were shots that I did where, again, I don't know, I mean, I'm going to use this somewhere. I like this shot. I like what it invokes, and I like the feel and the aesthetic of it. I've taken it and I've edited it. It doesn't mean I'm going to use it. I'm not going to shoehorn this in to something. I mean, yes, I could maybe get away with colour because of the red vibrancy. But again, you know, it's a nice, pleasing image. And I'm going to keep it, and there will be something I can use it for. But I'm not going to use it for the portfolio, because I think if I tried to fit this into colour is a bit obvious. I think I've got better colour options. The leading lines aren't quite there. I don't think that grid on the floor works too well. It's not a rule of odds. But it's a great shot. I mean, I took it, I've edited it, I've spent time on it, and I will use that. But I'm not going to force it in to the portfolio. I mean, this might be one of the favourite shots that I took that day because of that American diner old colour film aesthetic that it gives me. You know, the sort of people that I like, Fred Herzog, Saul Leiter, that sort of thing, giving me that type of vibe from the old film shooters, documentarians. But doesn't mean I'm going to I'm going to force it into my portfolio. And you will come across that. You'll come across images that you absolutely adore, that you like, that you're proud of. But if it doesn't fit the brief, straight out, please don't force it into your portfolio, making it fit. I mean, it's just a waste of a good photo, really. And again, this was a bit more of an experimentation. This was a really messy scene with lighting, flare, highlights, foreground, and this was me really experimenting with the new selection brushes in Lightroom. But again, an image that I come to like quite a bit. Again, this one, there was the framing, the windows being framed by the doors and the top part. I like the symmetry going on with this building. But again, it's where could I fit it? Could I get something on the rule of thirds perhaps? We've got two options, the two signs "we" appearing on both sides of the rule of thirds on the grid, perhaps. So this one was a good consideration because there was a very natural symmetry going on as well. Leading lines, this was an open style, and although there's a bit of a juxtaposition in the fact that the leading lines are on the other side, so we usually read left to right, the lines coming in from the right, but leading us back to the shoes there that has given us a visual interest. So I did like this one for leading lines because it's been led in by the corner, and I think this is where this one would probably land. Again, capturing shapes, so capturing these red circles. Colour, maybe not the strongest choice in terms of narrative, but in terms of maybe a shape image, if I could fit that into a square crop, this might work. But again, it's still taking the images, it's still processing them, it's still working with them, but having an open mind to be able to go, no, that's not going to fit, I'm not going to use that one. I like this one for pattern. I thought the pattern on the building, the man-made structure, the way it's been shaped, was quite good. It repeats as it goes along, and a similar option there. It's a half-page landscape, so there is room to crop here and get this into a horizontal. I could take a crop up to the pavement, for example, a little bit down from the sky, and have a landscape image. But I also shot at landscape. So again, when I'm seeing things I like, I am trying different variations while I'm there to make sure that I've got options. Playing with the flare of the lights, these building works that were going on, picking out all the variations of them. Again, looking down, I'm not sure there'd be a lot. I mean, the light was very good. This was actually reflective light bouncing off a window across the street and creating this. And, the sun would come in and out on this step quite often because the cloud cover was actually behind this black door. So behind this building that we're looking at, we're actually facing the sun. The way that I'm standing here, and the light's reflecting off a window behind me and casting this really interesting shaft of light across the step. Where it leads to, I don't know. Where it could be used, I don't know. But I just know sometimes, you take these images because you enjoy taking them. Again, I was looking at this one for sort of pattern or texture. I feel like the whitewash of the paint has got quite a texture to it, but also all the strips of tape that are up there as well. It's a very uneven pattern. It's repeated. The elements are repeating. So could it be a pattern? But it's a messy pattern. Again, is that something I take a chance on? Do I take a leap of faith on this one as well? So these pictures I've taken, and I've taken them because they've appealed to me at the time. They've caught my eye. It's something I want to look at, but I'm not necessarily taking them to say that one's going to be my pattern one. The way I go about it is to have the list of what I need on me, on a bit of paper, in my head, but it's not necessarily dictating every time I lift the camera up to my eye, if that makes sense. So sometimes I'm just shooting things because I like them. Again, I've got a pattern shape here. It's not landscape, so I kind of messed that one. David suggested maybe just flipping it, rotating it, but I'm not sure. I didn't like the way the diagonal was going to work there across the top of the page. But sometimes you see these patterns, you see these lights, pools of light coming on. You've got to snap them. I'm thinking back, I don't know why I didn't do it at the time, but hindsight's a great resource. You know, I could have got a fantastic pattern shot had I stopped and taken a horizontal and had these paving slabs as one pattern broken up by the pattern on this grating here, followed by the pattern of this brickwork. So, you know, this image of nothing else gives me a sort of reminder of maybe what to look for another time, or to maybe go out and look for it specifically, or whilst I'm wandering around to keep my eyes open for it. But at the time, so it's one of those times I didn't take an alternate shot, or didn't spot the alternate shot that I was taking this one. This is probably my favourite for texture. 3/4 page horizontal, nice mixture of textures there. I feel like I could pick up a splinter or two from the wood and feel the roughness of the light was nice and low, coming up right up the street through the buildings and lifting this texture up. So although this could be considered a safe shot, I think it's also graphically a very interesting shot to find as well. The black on the cream sort of thing, almost the yin and yang and difference in textures type thing. So I think there's a good play visually here as well. This would be my rule of odds. I saw this and I knew straight away that that's what I wanted it for. I wanted it for the rule of odds, the 3 bins, one of them being open. And I like the little story narrative that's sort of playing visually here, and that you've got two of the bins falling over, like 2 drunk men, one bin propping them open and it's full of alcohol. So it's almost like the bins have had a night out. And I love the juxtaposition of the red bins against the green overgrown moss and mould on the brickwork there. I think that works really well. And this one, again, it was one of those scenarios that I saw perhaps a front cover for colour, with a splash of blue and the red and the sort of greeny hues of the armchair against the grey and brown of the urban setting, and use the top half for my text. I'm not sure. I think this is one that I would take into Publisher and lay text over it and see how it panned out. But initially, again, it was more about the structure and colour. Again, here I'm playing with things like just the light and the shape and what's going on in front of me. And this was more an experiment on my part to replicate photos by those sort of American street photographers that I quite like, that get these sort of very subdued pictures of buildings. Fancied this one as well for pattern. I spoke about this one in the car, where the pattern is not right in your face. There's layers of patterns here. There's the paving slab set out in a pattern, the tiling on the wall set out in the pattern, the structure of the building set out in a pattern, and that it repeats as we go with the windows, with that added graphical element of the stencil showing you what the building used to be. And again, this one here, I like the 3 colours. I couldn't really figure out what I was going to use it for, but I take these images and maybe this will come up for another project, or maybe this will come something that I can use another time. Again, I'm not letting the brief dictate every time I take an image, because I'm building up my library of images that I could use for other things. Excuse me. And this one, I quite like the leading lines, and it's a bit different in that the walkway's leading us to the closed shop, so you feel like it's a dead end, but then you've got the arrow pointing to the left to say that we have moved. And again, because this was an open style, I did shoot this both ways round, and I've got the horizontal and the portrait. And that was just some other images that I took on the day. I think something's going wrong with my hard drive there towards the end, but we'll come back to the thumbnail view. I've been taking you through some yeah, I think there's definitely options there. There's options at play on colour and structure, things that give visual interest that we would look at, and it still remains within my personal style of shooting things that we walk past the mundane, but that has, when you stop and look at it and frame it in such a way, it has something of interest to it. Another one here for framing, but again full page vertical, so I'd have to crop this in, maybe using this window, because I couldn't quite fit in with wanting to get this in focus. Couldn't quite get the photograph, but an upright crop might actually just give me what I need, and I like the juxtaposition between the not in service and the cracked window, so that perhaps might be my framing, because again it has a narrative to it. Frozen movement perhaps. Freezing, I like the colours of the hat and the bag against the dreariness of the rest of the image. I mean, the grass is a bit vibrant, but I might take that down in editing just to make the whole surrounding a bit grayer as I saw it. And again, there's just shots where I'm practicing or training my eye in what I'm seeing. So, a lot of it is experimentation, and a lot of it is just being open to take pictures that you're not necessarily thinking, yes, that's a definite in the bag for the portfolio, but perhaps something that I can use. And what I'll do is I'll come back to these images. I'll choose a few for the Affinity demo, for the publisher demo, and for taking them a bit further. So we'll revisit some of these in terms of our layer examples. But thank you for listening, and I hope there was some benefit to it.